Here at the City Council Chambers at City Hall for the study session of the Waverly City Council. Call the meeting to order and entertain the roll call. Carla.
Beaufore.
Here.
Birgen.
Here I am.
Drenkow.
Here.
Rathe.
Here.
Schneider.
Here.
Meyers is absent, and Kangas will be here.
That is correct. And I see George has joined us once again.
Yes, running a little late.
Hey, right on time by my book, so nice to have you back.
Thank you.
We'll move to item C, Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Move forward with item D is the approval of the agenda. Entertain a motion.
I'll move approval of the agenda as presented.
Second.
Moved by Rathe, second by Birgen. Council discussion. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. Motion carries. Section E is public comments for items not on the agenda. Please limit your comments to 5 minutes unless additional time is granted by the presiding officer. All remarks shall be addressed to the council as a whole and not to any individual member. Any public comments this evening? Yes, sir. Come on up. State your name.
My name's Mike Young. I'm from Northeast Waverly. Appreciate the time for public comments. I think that's very important. One, I'm going to have to plead ignorant on the first topic is the shelter south of the fire station. I'm curious if that was, did we receive any federal or state funding for that project?
No.
So that was total taxpayer thing?
Yep.
Okay, I've talked to, excuse me, I've talked to farmers market people, and my concern is why we're still having them on the street when before the project they weren't on the street at all. So if there was a fire at that time, they're gonna have to reroute around them. The people that like to travel First Street there cannot on Tuesdays and Saturdays, the times that they're there. Visiting with some of them, it sounds like no one included them in the planning of that project because I think their general consensus is they would have preferred to have some kind of a driveway that they could back their vehicles up to the shelter instead of trying to haul it all across the grass whenever that is eventually permitted. So I don't know if there's allowance for that to happen yet, but in case none of those people have directly said anything to you folks, I thought I would pass that along.
Okay.
It just seems like that's an awful lot of money to not doing anything. Like there's 2 picnic tables on there right now, and I don't know if the city put them on or somebody drug them up there. So that would be something to consider for those folks. The other topic is concerning the bridge that's going to be replaced on Bremer Avenue. As great a project as the bladder dam was, I think there was one failure there that I don't know if, excuse me, if too many people considered this, but the coffer dam, when it blew out because of flooding, greatly changed the structure of the river system because all that material washed downstream. A lot of it's piled up on the inside of the curb below the dam area. And that changes the route for the fish, it changes the route for fishermen, where it's safe and what's not to access and that type of thing. So I'm in hopes that with this project, it's supposed to be like 2 years for the Bremer Avenue bridge, is what I've heard, that there's some kind of allowance for a contractual agreement with somebody to clean up the river when all that stuff is washed down again, because in that long of a period, I'm sure there's going to be at least 2 or 3 blowouts of their coffer dams that they travel across. And is there anything currently being discussed about that?
I'll have to direct your questions to get an answer because during public comment we really don't engage as such. So on your first items with South Riverside Park, I'll ask through James to have Garrett and you get that information as far as what the outlook is, the future plan for the farmers market, and then and speak with James to figure out the specifics on the the riverbed with the cofferdam debris and that kind of thing as well. So best I can do is say we would need to follow up with you,
Okay,
following our council's procedures on
you bet.
this. So, all right,
Thank you for your time.
thank you. Anyone else for public comment this evening? Seeing nobody else rise, we'll move to section F, the study session calendar. Item number 1 is the Library Board of Trustees update.
Thank you very much. My name is Deanna McHugh, and I serve on the Library Board of Trustees, and I'm also the current president of the Library Foundation. And I'm going to walk us through a little bit of an overview of our proposed project that we wanted to bring to you guys tonight. And Sarah Meyer, as you all know, our library director, is going to man the technology for us. So I know you had the slides in advance as part of your packet, so I'll try to move through these pretty quickly, and then we'll have time for some questions afterwards. As I said, this is really an overview of a proposed project to renovate our library, and we're calling it Make Room for Renewal. And want to share a little bit about the background and how we got to here. And probably the first place to start is to really just talk about where the library's been. And the library actually in Waverly was here in various forms in the 1800s, but the first permanent facility, Andrew Carnegie donated the money, and that building was built in 1905. And that lasted until 1968, when we outgrew that facility. We needed to expand, and so a wraparound structure was completed there in the 60s. And then another 25, 30 years went by, and we outgrew that facility. And it was time to look at expanding, and the Board of Trustees at the time proposed the building of the current facility, and construction of that building actually started 25 years ago, and it was opened then in 1998. So the current facility has actually been in place for a quarter of a century. It was well planned, it's well maintained, but a lot has changed in the last 25 years. And you see a few of those stats here up on the screen. Some amazing statistics. There are, in the average year, about 1,100 different programs offered at the library. And that's 150% more than when the library opened 25 years ago. About 30,000 kids attend programs, and that's triple from what it was when the building opened a quarter of a century ago. 31,000 sessions of technology use on public computers or on the wireless internet. And that's despite the fact that so much has changed and we carry computers around with us basically, unlike when the building was opened. And that's 136,000 visits to the library in a year. That's 14, on average, 14 visits per capita for Waverly. One of the most amazing differences, though, is the collection of the library itself. 25 years ago, what was the most prominent thing that you came to the library for? A book, a physical book. Today, there's digital books and audio books and DVDs and all this different type of technology. So in fact, today, more than half of the library's collection, things to check out, is digital. And I think if you click on that statistic there, it's actually 57% of the collection is digital today. So much change, new programs, different technologies, different services at the library. And as we looked at that as a Board of Trustees, we said, you know, the library services of today no longer really fit the library as it was designed 25 years ago. So the Board of Trustees, back in 2018, 2019, started a long-range planning process to look at that change at the library. And the process was led by National Library Consultants, KBA. They gathered or guided us through a process to really gather a ton of input from patrons, from community members, from staff and the board members. And out of that came a strategic plan to really take us forward, including a space needs assessment. And the recommendation was really to redesign the library to meet the changing needs and the growing demand for new kinds of services. And you see some samples of just a ton of great community input that we got around some different themes, like more quiet space for adults, expanded area for kids, a dedicated teen space, but also some great comments about just how much people love the library and the staff and want to see us continue to invest and grow the library going forward. So out of that whole effort, we had some goals to look at how we turned those plans into action and really looked at how we could redesign the library and improve its space as a community center for kids, for teens, for adults, recognize the impact of technology. And so that planning effort then moved into work with an architecture firm with experience in library projects, and they delivered a facility master plan that paved the way for this proposed project to make room for renewal at the library. We've had representatives from our library board, our foundation board, our friends board, community folks that have worked as a committee, and that's really what brings us here today, this proposed project to renew our much-loved community library space and see that it continues that tradition of providing room for everyone. Some of the key things that came out of that process, key areas of needs, certainly first on the list is more room for children. The growing popularity of kids programs, and that's all the way from babies up to middle school, has meant huge crowds for those programs. And noise is spilling out. If you've been to the library, you know, kids are everywhere. Noise is kind of echoing across the facility. Kids are straining to try to see what's going on with the presenters. They're competing for space sometimes to play and read and get access to toys and games. Parents are looking for a spot to sit and try to find where they can keep an eye on things. And children just need more room to grow with the library. There's that statistic there. We had one of our busiest summer reading seasons that just finished, and on one day, 450 kids came to pet the sharks. And so it's just been an amazing season. So this project would expand the library's children's area and add a kind of a unique story tree sculpture up to the rafters around which kids can gather for story time, and tiered seating, get more visibility and access to presentations and programs, new furniture and play areas, better storage, add space for caregivers to sit nearby or work nearby, a baby ring where the youngest patrons can play while parents are observing, and more space for all different ages to kind of have room of their own. A new staff desk that provides sight lines to the kids and to the teens that we'll talk about in a moment, and more children will grow up being able to love the Waverly Library. For teens, we're blessed to have a large group of teens that use the library as a regular meeting place and a space for gaming and collaboration. And again, when it's a busy time, teens are everywhere, and the noise is all through the library. There's waiting lines for gaming equipment and technology. And teens are also expanding our idea of what the library can mean as a community space and coming up with all sorts of unique things that really help them make the library space their own. In terms of the project, then the project will make a dedicated teen space by enclosing the southwest patio that's seldom used today, and that would become a dedicated teen tech and youth lounge. And that would add about 1,000 square feet to the library's footprint. 2 spaces in there, one for technology and gaming, and one for more social activities and working together with booth seating. Bookshelves would be relocated to kind of gather the young adult materials nearby, and glass walls would close that off and keep that space to minimize the noise, but also maintain the building's open feel. And then Waverly Teens would have a community space of their own at the library. For adults, they're looking for more space for meetings and book clubs and access to technology, but the most common request we've heard all through that process for adults is, I just want more space to be able to read, a quiet place at the library. And if you've ever been there on a Wednesday early out, you know those are tough to come by. There's also a lot of growing popularity for adult programming. And adults want the library to feel like it isn't just solely for the kids. So the Make Room for Renewal project will renovate the northwest corner of the building, and not the patio. That's heavily used on the northwest with access to the gardens. But the corner of the existing building will become an adult den with more comfortable seating, and a fireplace, and that'll be a quiet reading and relaxation space. But there'll also be more places for reading added throughout, tables for small groups, study rooms will be expanded and redesigned, and we're also looking at some sound mitigation between the big conference rooms where sound can kind of bleed through the spaces. And then Waverly adults will have what they need to meet their needs. So those dedicated spaces for kids and teens and adults, but it really is about the whole community and using the space as a community center. And people missed that during the pandemic. And now that people are coming back, they're finding it's harder to find a place to gather. And that free public space is critical in today's kind of challenging economic times, and the library provides that. There's a lot more studying and working remotely, and the technology is used at the library by all ages. That's a big part of library services, and there's a growing popularity for those DIY programs, as I said, and a lot of diverse things. There's a foam party, there's a tomato swap, there's Spice Club, there's puzzle tournaments, you name it, lots of diverse things happening at the library, and people want that to continue to be a welcoming place for everyone. So the project will update the meeting rooms, add study space, more space throughout for computer access. The checkout area and the info desk will be redesigned to free up more space, and then the library of things will have more space. That's the being able to check out American Girl dolls or cake pans or kites or kilowatt meters. There'll be more space for that kind of growing collection. There's 150 board games you can check out at the library, and that's a hugely popular collection. Books, of course, will still be a centerpiece, though. And the entire interior will be redesigned to really maximize that intergenerational use, and the quality of life in Waverly, of course, is the key goal. So more room to meet and learn, work and play, and a space that now can grow with us for the next 25 years. As I said, though, that's a complete renovation of the entire interior space, so shelving and finishes, furniture, making the lobby a more usable space. There's also some exterior work. If you've seen the south face of the library, there's been staining and weathering happening there, so paint and refresh that. The noise mitigation. We're not changing the beautiful gardens, they're fabulous, but there'll be better windows now to really showcase the gardens on that west side. We have a rare books collection that nobody knows about. That'll get some better display, modernize the restrooms, and improve the drive-up window. for both staff and drivers. So you see the proposed floor plan there. The existing main entry is there at the bottom. That stays as it is. Bremer Avenue on the left, gardens and childcare at the top, and West Cedar on the right. And this is the architect's drawing of the new space. So the first area is the children's area in the same vicinity of where it is today. So if you click on that, Sarah, that's where that story tree sculpture would be created and the children's area would be expanded. Then the second space is taking that patio and enclosing it to create the teen, tech, and youth lounge. And then in the opposite corner is the renovation of that area into the adult den. And then everything else on the interior gets renovated and renewed. And so if you click, Sarah, you see that's the existing outline of the building. So it's really that number 2, the teen space, that's the new construction. In terms of the costs, that new spaces for children, for teens and adults, about $920,000. The renovation of all the rest of the interior, $950,000. Those exterior things, the south face and the drive-up window, another $80,000, and then architect fees and administrative costs, and then a healthy contingency for construction in today's cost environment for $450,000. So the total cost of the proposed project is $8.4 million. And where might the money come from? These are our current funding targets. Of course, here we are to talk about potential funding from the city of $700,000, another $700,000 matching that with a public fundraising campaign, and then up to $700,000 from existing gifts in our library foundation, and then the remainder from grant opportunities. And some of you may be aware, but we received a generous gift from the Wayne and Nancy Anderson estate in 2020, and we used those dollars to fund a bookmobile that should be coming next year, and then that would also kind of be a lead gift to kick off the project here later on. And in terms of the timeline, we could start fundraising for major gifts later this year, and then public grassroots fundraising at the beginning of the year, permitting in the spring, bidding in the summer, and construction could start as early as fall of next year. Go into spring of 2024 so that we were open for the busy summer reading program season then. And then next steps, we're targeting foundation dollars to cover all of those architect fees and admin costs and contingencies so that 100% of public donations go to the renewal effort. We're committing a majority of our existing gifts toward the effort. We've been spending a lot of time here recently looking at whether we need a feasibility study to really confirm that we've got the goals right. And we've decided that all the planning that was done really got us to a good place. And we could reduce costs by using the major gift phase as a way to gather some of that feedback and find out if we're on track. And of course that means then too, if we get feedback that we need to adjust the timeline, the Building and Grounds Committee of the Library Board has already put together priorities and kind of a plan B, if you will, to look at how we might phase construction and do the most important things first. We do have a fundraising committee that's working on getting a campaign organized, and we are also looking and interviewing professional fundraising firms to kind of supplement the talents of, we've got a ton of great support from our boards and our staff and community volunteers, but getting some experts to help too is going to be important. And we've got a great bunch of support here tonight, and we are very close to getting 100% participation from the boards of the library, the foundation, and our Friends group. So that's awesome. And this is here to provide info as early as possible to you guys' planning process and really to seek your support. So we're asking that the City Council approve $700,000 for the Make Room for Renewal project as it comes up as part of the 2023 budget cycle. And again, that's matching the public fundraising goal and really gives us an opportunity to continue to grow the library so that it's ready for the next 25 years. So with that, I'll open it up for any questions or other comments from the gallery.
I guess the one thing that jumps out to me is the 300,000 in grants and stuff, and how confident are you in the ability to find grants and have access to those?
Yeah, great question. I think we do have some experience, and I know, Sarah, you may want to talk to your colleagues at other libraries.
I have spoken to some colleagues, one at Hiawatha who has tapped into some, well, the CAT grant, for one, the Guernsey Foundation, the McElroy Foundation. There are a few that are particularly interested in teen projects or youth projects, and we've been told that we might have a very good chance at some of that funding, so we're hopeful.
And some of the public fundraising firms that we're looking at, have some expertise with grant writing that I think we'd like to tap into to make that a reality.
Well, I think it looks wonderful. I mean, I don't see how we cannot do this. I mean, I think it's essential for the city, and we're the envy of towns all around here. So the only question I had is, how do you propose phasing the construction so that use of the library isn't totally disrupted?
Yeah, no, that's certainly something that I know Sarah and board and staff have been thinking about.
I know when we were discussing these things with the architect, there are certain parts of the project, like the teen room, for instance, or the adult den, that could just be literally taped off and done by itself because there isn't any shelving involved. It doesn't involve moving anything else in the collection. When we start to get to the children's section and move things around, that's when the dominoes start happening and it shifts throughout the building. But there are portions that can be done standalone like that. Our goal would be to keep as much of the building open as long as we can, and maybe there will be ways to do that as we move along. The other good thing is that by then we anticipate having our bookmobile up and running, and that will be another way for us to be present. It won't be a substitute for the whole building, but it might help us through that time.
So looking, 20, 40 years down the road, do you think the library is going to have to expand again?
Who knows?
Yeah, it's really hard to tell. I mean, I do think the major trend is toward a common space for people, and I don't really see that as going away anytime soon. I do think over time, over the next 25 years, we will be able to take out more shelving units. I imagine we'll still have books 25 years from now. May not be as many. There may be more electronic book users by then, but I don't think that's going to entirely go away. But I do think more space will be freed up for seating areas and other spaces for people to enjoy.
Yeah, that free public space for everyone, I think that need will exist forever.
Yeah, for those of you who didn't watch that CBS Sunday morning clip, that was really good.
Wasn't it?
I mean, I
Yeah.
think libraries are, they're everything from social work centers to community gathering spots, and it's truly one of the few places now that's free, friendly, accepting of anyone who walks through the door, and that's priceless. So
For sure.
I just know through talking with some of the folks that are involved with All-In Mentoring, AIM, it seems to be a hub for people to gather, and that's one of their challenges. There's, they want to be in a public space, number one, for all the obvious reasons, but also being able to have a space where they can communicate openly, but also candidly with a person, and sometimes that's been a challenge for them at this facility. And so I think this addresses that as well.
I might just want to make one comment here as someone who is of the generation where a library was where you went to read a book, and that was pretty much it. And yes, and be quiet, that's why I was usually not found in the library. But, and people have commented that, do we really need a library because so many people are having access to books, online, books on their Kindles or whatever, and streaming services for movies and all of that kind of thing. But I think if the purpose of the library was simply to house books, I would say probably not. But it appears to me that what is happening here, and from what you have described, is we're really transitioning away from a classic library to more of a community center, something that isn't necessarily focused only on people checking out reading material, but on a place where people can come and engage in activities and have planned activities and have space and those kinds of things for a community center that we truthfully don't have here in Waverly. So I think that in answer, and you might want to just comment on this, the answer to those people who say that we really don't need a library, maybe we don't need a place where people only go in to check out books, but I think that the idea of a library is much more expansive than it had been in the past. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right about that, that more and more people like that engagement around their interest areas, whether that's a book club or learning how to do a new skill. Yeah, I think, and we found out during the pandemic that there are still a lot of people that don't have wireless internet or high-speed internet that have a need to come to the place for that as well.
Absolutely.
Well, and I think people want contact, the more, the more technology we get and the more connected we are electronically, the more distant people are interpersonally. And the library is one of the few people where you get all sorts of people. I mean, I walked in there Saturday afternoon, the place was packed.
Yeah.
With people doing all sorts of things, and I think, that's great. So, yeah, the need is only gonna get stronger, I think, whether it's books or meeting spaces or whatever, so.
Very true.
I guess I kind of chuckle with Dr. Rathe's questioning about how to stage the different constructions. If there's a group of people that have the creativity to come up with
It's the library.
it's the library. I'm always amazed at the number of different things you come up with for activities for all ages. And so to me, that's they're gonna
They'll figure it
figure
out.
something out.
Yeah, I'm the liaison with the library board, so I've been seeing these plans coming. But I can just speak the number of Waverly residents who I've talked to have talked about how wonderful the library is, people moving to the community where seeing the Waverly Library was the thing that sold them on the town. I think we are very fortunate to have the library we do, and I think we would be fools not to continue to invest in it. So I would actually encourage everyone else on the city council to, when they get around to the public fundraising, to get out your checkbook and be part of that $700,000 of public support as well.
Well, thank you so much for the time, and again, if other questions come up, funnel those through Sarah, and I'm sure we'll be back for further updates.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the very thorough presentation, both of you, and I want to also thank everyone that showed up to show their support for the endeavor, so thank you. All right. Go on to item number 2, the Cedar River Park Ball Diamonds update.
It's just what I want to do is follow that. Let's talk about more money.
We're right here with you.
Just what I wanted to do, so. Briefly, we've been going through a lot in the last couple of years, converting that cornfield with a hill in it to the complex you see now. We've got tremendous drone footage of it, and you see it, and everybody's anxious to get on it, and we'd like to finish it quickly too. It's just, we're at that final phase, and we're trying to get it figured out how people can get on it partially. You know, I still think we need dugouts, bathrooms, things like that to really finish that off, to make it truly playable throughout. So, you know, when we first started this project, we knew it was gonna be about $4.5 million. I still think that's where we're aiming for. The city has put in about 2.5 of that with the proceeds from the Champions Ridge sale, that property, and the $700,000 that was borrowed for the dirt work, underground work, et cetera, which was our limit without referendum. You see that number 700 around a lot of places, because that's a pretty common issue, is a limit without a referendum. With Jeremy Langner's leadership on the fundraising, we are sitting at about $1.2 million and change in fundraising. We've received about 700,000 roughly so far of those portions, so we still have another 400,000 or 500,000 to go, and that gets us completely clear through second phase and then some. The final phase, of course, is the vertical infrastructure, buildings and press boxes and dugouts, etc. And early estimates with some contingency prior to the chaos that was COVID and supply chain issues was about 800,000. That's what got us to the $4.5 million. So we've hit the first 3 marks that we needed to from the fundraising. The debt we could take on, the proceeds of the sale, all that came through as we anticipated. The final piece of the buildings, though, which have been a little tougher to get a handle on. We talk about material costs and just the fact that everybody is so overwhelmed with so much work now to do. The availability has made it difficult to get some pricing that's been acceptable also. We went out a few months ago, took out some bids, tried to see kind of where everything was, and it was much, much higher than we anticipated. Some of it might have been the time frame. We're trying to get this done in the fall as well and get that push to try and get on these fields. And I think there's so much work out there, we just did not get the participation we had hoped from a variety of vendors, and it was just difficult to get that funding down where we thought we could accomplish it. We received new plans today with some re-engineered spots that are, it's a little different, but maybe it's a little simpler, it's a little better. We're gonna try and review that the next day or two. Our goal is to get that bid out again this fall, with a push to be on these fields hopefully in the next spring. Unfortunately, it's gonna take a bit of funding to front that. We are limited in what we can do. You know, we've borrowed all that we legally can. That's it, that's off the table. The casino has provided us a good sizable piece of a grant for the all-inclusive playground, which we will come up the other half of that. So that has been kind of maxed out too. I think we're reminded to just not come back for a little while. So that was the single largest grant ever given by a casino outside of Blackhawk County, and we're proud to have that. Grants we are still working on. We've gotten some smaller grants. We still need to go after some of the big ones. They're extremely competitive. I'm not going to promise we're going to get them, because that's a kiss of death to do that. So we're going to hope to go after them, try and compete as best we can, trying to alleviate some of that issue as well. But in the end, we may have to front some of this funding. We have some funds set aside for economic development, other things that we would not necessarily spend, but they will have to offset a deficit we may have to draw down on to get these moving at least to the point where they can be usable in the spring. The only other couple funds that we have that exist would be if you wanted to tax for part of it. That's something we'll have to discuss this fall. That would not take effect on July 1st, and we're hoping to be done by then. So that's another problem we kind of face. From an audit standpoint, we have limitations within each of the service areas. So capital projects being one of them, that whole item has to stay positive or we will get a slap in the wrist, and we don't like to do that in our audit. And so part of what we're trying to do is figure out what funds do we have that are still available, whether it's from another project, et cetera, if nothing else, just to offset until we can recoup and retrieve some of the rest of the funding we're gonna need. So local option sales tax has been building for a bit. Even with the bonds that are being paid off, I think there is a good opportunity for us to use a chunk of that for the next number of years to offset this cost that we will have to front. The capital improvement fund is a lot smaller. We generally use that for smaller projects or some we can divert. So in a nutshell, there is no clear and easy way to do this, to get it done, but our goal is to get it done somehow. And that is kind of where we're sitting right now. We will have a lot more information for you probably end of October when we start getting into budget, start talking about anything council would like to see, advice, points they want us to take into consideration. We'll kind of hope to see where those bids are in September, with the new ones coming in, and maybe we can only accept half of them and just get part done that we have to get done, then continue to try and chip away as we go forward. But our goal is to try and get this done as soon as we can, but within a reasonable amount of money as well, so we're not taxing any part of the city any more than we should. And I say taxing not in the sense of paying taxes, as in depleting funds too far in any one area. So we'll pull everything we have from different pieces that we can. It's gonna be a lot of hodgepodge to get it finished, but I think we can do it. It just may be a multi-year project to get this paid back down once we get it accomplished, so. That's the best, most confusing way I think I can probably explain it to you. If you have questions, I'll answer them. That's kind of where we're at. We're doing what we can to pull all we can, but without some additional grant work. And again, the fundraising has been very successful. I don't know how much more of that you can really count on. We've exceeded where we were going to be, and that's been helpful. It's just now is that final piece that we have to push for. We were hoping for more grant participation, but COVID, supply chains really threw a wrench into that. And so we're having to redevelop what these grants are that are available. Some of them we don't qualify for because of the type of project. Some of them we will never see the day of light because it's gobbled up by the metro, and the bigger cities are taking that funding. It's not big enough, then it's too big. So we're really in a interesting spot with that funding request. But regardless, like I said, any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
So the vertical structures, we put those out for bid this spring, did you say?
Early spring or late spring, early summer.
And that's what came up really rich.
Really high. And we knew at the time there was a chance of that with everybody's demand being so high at the time. And now that projects are finishing off and they're starting to look at winter and future project, we're hoping for a little better figures, something we can maybe manage a little easier.
And the difference is, if we would have acted on those, we would have been done with it this fall, but it would have been economically a mess.
A lot.
Yeah.
More than double what we were anticipating. So probably not a smart thing to do. And we may have been done this fall.
I
Again,
think
you've
there's
got
some
supply
inflation
issues.
going on, but we'll
There
see
is.
how those come in a little bit.
Part of it even is lead time. We look at something specialized as the all-inclusive project for the park system. We just can't go get that. I mean, that's got to be developed and looked at. That'll be the spring where we can even think about putting that in to start with. So we have time on that as well to hopefully try and engage the second half of that funding. But in the meantime, we still want to try and push to get out what we can. Because the best part is the foundations are in, the footings are in, there's no concrete to worry about getting done. It's now just vertical infrastructure moving up, utilizing the conduits that are there, the plumbing, everything is there. In fact, it's one of the reasons we kind of hesitate getting people on there. You have pipes sticking out the ground in these foundations, and we'd have to fence that all off completely and make sure that it's safe for people to be out there. And so we've got a little bit to go yet, but I think we're gonna be confident we can push it and get it done. It's just gonna be balancing that timing of funding as well as when we can transfer in from other funds from other parts of the city. So I wish it was easier, I do, but it's just a tough time to have gone through that.
Yeah, I mean, Jeremy's done a great job with the fundraising, and I'd encourage families, individuals who have not donated yet, who are interested in this, to donate. Every little bit helps. I mean, I think that in the meetings I've attended, what I hear is a commitment from the city that we're going to get this done. I think, James, you're the perfect person to help us figure out how to fund it, right? And it might be taking different amounts from different places.
I guarantee it's gonna be taken
yes,
from other places.
And I think, like you said, really to have games on that field, to do it safely, you need dugouts and you need bathrooms, right? Especially if you're going to have an all-inclusive Miracle Field. You have to have those amenities for people, and hopefully we can get some more, realistic bids.
Get a little more interest.
Yeah.
Some more competitive
Yeah.
bidding. That's our goal. I think we will. I think we get a decent handle on it. It's just, we got to get it out there and see what it is. So we'll try and get through that this week, get that ready to go, and get that moving, so.
Yeah, just piggyback off of that, I think comments been out there that, well, I haven't been asked. Well, you've been asked now.
You've been asked now.
You know,
Yeah, there's a
if you
great
wanna
website,
participate.
and,
Yeah.
the service clubs in town have all been fundraising, and, yeah, so we're asking now.
Absolutely. Yeah, Jeremy, has put in a lot of time and effort I know we've given accolades, but I just don't think we can give enough for what's been done there.
No, that was all separate time from him on his personal
Yep.
time.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
not a paid position, it was not anything that, we said, hey, go do this, he just went and did it.
Exactly.
And that's a belief in that project, so that's why we want to get this done and get it usable.
I definitely, when you use the word recoup and deplete funds, I don't like to hear some of those things.
Well, I hate saying
Nobody
them,
does, I know. But I think remaining focused on this project for the families in our community is important. And, I have been diagnosed with ADHD, and having too many things going on can really get confusing and can deplete you emotionally and mentally and financially. So making sure that this remains a priority, versus, now we need to spread our funds somewhere else, or, we really do need to focus on something and get it finished before we go to the next. So.
We will.
Yep. Anything else on this topic? I was going to ask, I know we'll probably hear it later, but since we're on the topic, it's the update. If Garrett would paraphrase the September 3rd event for us, the open house at this time, I think that would be suitable, and kind of give the expectations of why we're allowing certain things to happen during that event and not any other time, that kind of thing.
Absolutely, that just takes away my staff comments later. So
That's okay. It's just fitting, though.
So September 3rd, the association is putting on an open house out at Cedar River Park. We're planning on having, if not all of the diamonds open, most of the diamonds opened. We're going to have them lined, we'll have bases out, all the good stuff. Kids, the families, everyone can come out and participate. Whether it's a game of catch, whether it's taking some grounders, whether it's running the bases. We're going to have, everything ready to go that way. That's going to be from 11 o'clock until 1 o'clock on the 3rd. Lunch is going to be sponsored by Hy-Vee, $5 bag lunch. So feel free to come out and check that out. We will take precautions to have things, fenced off and roped off, or where we don't necessarily want people, some of the more, we'll call them dangerous places, where we have foundations set and everything like that already. And this is going to be kind of just it's an open house, get out there, check out the fields. This is not opening the fields yet. So they will be closed again after this until we do get that vertical infrastructure in place. Any questions about that day at all?
It's a lot more controlled than what you would see with a scrimmage or something else. I mean, it's not going to be that kind of an atmosphere at all.
Correct.
Absolutely. Thank you, Garrett.
Yep, thanks.
All right, moving to item number 3, discussion of potential bridge enhancements for the Bremer Avenue Bridge replacement.
I would like to talk on that topic here if I would, if Garrett can get my computer working. The purpose here, and this is hopefully not going to be a terribly long discussion, but I wanted to get some feedback from the rest of the council on their feelings on the presentation that we had from the DOT last week, Monday night. If there are any particular preferences that the council has for the part of the bridge design that's integral to the bridge that the DOT will be putting in as part of their project. And then secondly, to get a sense of the council whether you want to go beyond that and have enhancements to the bridge that are beyond what are integral to the DOT's design on the bridge. There have been a group of people that have been working kind of off and on for the last 2 years and coming up with some ideas and suggestions and that sort of thing, but if there isn't a strong interest on the council to proceed with that, then obviously we don't want to spend any more of our people's time on going forward with that. Let's see. I handed out, since there was not, since this did not go out with the packet, I did hand out a paper copy of this, but it's also on your computer screens if you like to take a look at that. You can go to the next page here. This is just an overview of how the bridge aesthetics are currently suggested to be configured. Go ahead to the next one, Garrett. These are the railings. Right now, I think that the consensus seems to be that we'll probably be using a picket rail, which is fairly close to what we currently have on the bridge. There are a number of other options that you can see here, and I guess I wanted to find out if there's anybody on the council here that has a particular preference for what railing should go on the bridge.
So are these all the same cost? I mean, are these all covered by the DOT?
These are all, would be installed by the DOT, that's correct.
Okay. You know, when I looked at these, I sort of like number 3 because it matched the signage that we're putting in all over town with the parks and sort of the curvy, I don't know what to call it, curvy design that's on the new park signs, et cetera. I guess it's called flow on here. I thought that sort of matched what else we're doing aesthetically.
I would agree. I mean, when I see the flow, it reminds me of the Shades of Rhythm Amphitheater in Coleman Park. And I kind of like tying that theme in other places.
I was partial to meander, but that's just because I kind of like meander.
Of course you were.
Of course. I got a terrible design eye, so I just go along with the flow.
I thought a couple of those looked like they'd make you fall
Literally.
down.
I would say I do prefer the brick just out of, number one, it looks a bit better, but if people are crashing into that, the brick can just be more easily modified.
Oh, you mean on the veneer on the next
side,
page?
yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'll.
Yeah.
Well,
But
that'll be the
designers-
next
That'll be the next
picture
slide,
here,
yeah.
but are we finished talking about the railings?
The exterior rail.
Okay.
If all of them are gonna be provided.
They're all the same cost,
They're
yeah.
all the same cost, then, you know, that I agree with Ann that we wanna try to stay.
Themed.
They're all the same cost as far as the city is concerned, because we're not paying for it, I don't know. Some of these may actually be more costly to the DOT, but they're not increasing the city's cost on it.
So we don't know, do we know that the DOT would get us these railings?
If they can, I mean, there's always a question of whether they're able to get them fabricated or not. If they're able to fabricate them, these are some styles that they've used and they suggested, and
Okay.
I would assume that they'd be available.
But that was what they were saying at the open
Was it?
house. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, can we pop on the next slide? And these are the, right now, I think that the consensus seems to be that having the brick on the barriers is probably the more attractive way to go.
And I think it does a job of tying the downtown together too.
Yeah.
So,
It's less boring.
yeah. and-
All right, next one. All right, the DOT also provided some alternatives to the trapezoid shape that is shown in the overview. They had rectangular, semicircular prow, and an ellipse.
I don't remember this at the presentation.
It wasn't at the presentation. This is from some previous work that we've done with the DOT and some other discussions we had with them. And these were some alternatives that would probably be available if we wanted to use some kind of a shape that's other than the trapezoid. The trapezoid is what is shown on all of the material that the DOT had on Monday.
So it looks like there's 2 bump outs on either side of the bridge.
Correct.
That's right. 4 total.
Yeah. And that's where the supports are underneath.
And
I don't know, I sort of like the rounded,
The
you know,
ellipse.
if you're gonna try to do that flow, if they'll
Yeah,
pay
I'm
for
going
the
back to my
flow.
design ignorance. If you've got this going here,
Yeah.
you want something rounded
Yeah, yeah.
on your
I
overlook.
I do like the ellipse. So,
Yeah, I'd go for that.
I'd worry about the prow and kick people trying to become, king of the
Prow.
world.
Titanic.
yeah, yeah.
the prow one. There seems to be a consensus toward the
I
ellipse.
think we like the ellipse.
All right. Okay, let's go to the next page
Do we know
here.
on cost on that?
Here again, this is part of the design work on the
Okay.
bridge. This is integral to the construction of the bridge, so this is what the DOT would be constructing.
I didn't know
Right.
if there was a reason why they didn't have these shapes in the presentation on, what was it, last Monday?
The trapezoid, I think, is the one that was probably more of a standard type of design. I don't think there was
And it-
anything particular that the DOT was necessarily recommending one over another.
I think the ellipse also, part of the conversation that evening was snow removal, that kind of stuff on there. And that
Maybe
particular
easier.
shape may be easier for equipment manipulation.
The trapezoid shape,
No, the ellipse.
or the ellipse.
A sweep through versus rigid edges. Just a thought, I don't know, I'm not an operator.
I think you're right on with that.
All right, let's go to the next page. This is one thing that's a possibility. Rather than having the railings also be the railings that are on the bridge also be the railings on the bump outs, that you could do a special railing for the overlooks, particularly a stainless steel cable railing that would make the river more visible. But it would be a different railing than what was on the rest of the bridge.
I don't know, I don't see the need to do that. I think those acrylic panels look like a nightmare. They're gonna be filthy.
Yeah.
And I would not ask leisure services staff to be hanging over there
The
cleaning.
bottle of Windex.
Yeah, I don't see the need. If you could do like that flow pattern, you could see through there nicely.
Okay.
I find it hard to believe that they would do that without charging us money for that little extra thing. But
And then with the lighting details, they were presenting this with the flip-up panels for the access to the lighting panels under the bridge with a W cutout on them. Is there any particular comment about that people like that, people don't like it?
Well, I was kind of the impression that part of this was a safety issue on the dam side. So if there was someone, like if they needed to see what was going on in the water there, it was able to illuminate that. Because I thought they were only talking about doing it on the one side, on the dam side, and not on the other side.
Just on the one dam side.
To illuminate the dam,
Or to illuminate the dam, okay.
That's how they get access to the lights.
yeah. And then
Right.
that's how you could change them or whatever.
I think the intention was only to illuminate the north side
Of the dam, okay.
toward the dam.
Okay.
So yeah, the panels would only be on the north side of the bridge and not on the south side. That's probably
That's something
fairly
though the
limited.
DOT is not willing to do, to spend themselves though, correct? Those lights.
The lights, no,
No.
that would be the city's responsibility.
Right.
Yeah.
So we would have to at least kind of know what general expense I think
Yeah,
we'd be
the
looking
cost
at.
there.
Right.
Those could always be added later to,
We're-
right? I mean, ideally, yes, you want to do, but I mean, this is starting to be an expensive meeting here, so.
But we haven't spent any money yet.
yeah,
It's enough.
Well, I think the point is that if you're going to have lights there, you need to have them designed into the bridge rather than added later. It makes a
Well,
lot
and
more sense.
the
to do
panels
that.
is to access them if you need to change the lights or do any kind of maintenance on them.
Right.
And the W is intended to be a placeholder.
Okay.
It could be anything on that.
Okay.
panel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you do not like the W, it's too much.
Could be an L for Luther.
that's right.
I'm assuming it's a W for Waverly, so.
Oh, okay.
All right, well, let's move on here real. Okay, okay, that's basically the proposals that are part of the integral design of the bridge that the DOT is proposing. Now we get to the second part here that are aesthetic enhancements that are not part of the DOT bridge work. The part that I want to point out to you in this slide is in the upper right-hand corner. You see that plinth with the brick work and the base on top. That's something that the DOT has agreed to put in if we want it. That is designed to support objects that we might want to have in that area. For example, if you go to the next one here, Garrett, this shows a shade structures that might be constructed on the top of those plinths. You could also use them as a base for artwork, for sculpture or banners or some kind of other similar vertical structures. And I guess the question is, do we want to have the DOT proceed with putting those in because they're going to be anchored all the way down to the supports, to the bridge piers, so that they're not impacting the deck of the bridge. I think that if there's not an interest in having those there, if we're not planning on having any kind of display, any kind of enhancement to the bridge that would be making use of those, I think that they would just as soon not have them there.
I personally don't think that is all necessary. I guess, I mean,
Yeah, we're talking about being able to clear snow or something. That was
Yes,
like an
snow
incentive.
removal around them
Yes,
would be a pain.
yes,
I think,
yeah.
I mean, I think that you'd have to have people going by on a regular basis to pick up the garbage that gets left on them.
yes.
You know, people setting something down and walking away.
Like the hologram people in the.
Yeah, exactly.
I like the thought of the canopies, but I'm glad that the renderings here don't do a disservice to the depiction of what they result in, but it doesn't look like there's much benefit for where the shade cast is at. It's either gonna be in the street from the south lane side or in the river on the north lane side. Obviously with a sail, it would have some precipitation protection, but other than that,
Well, and I also just think about how windy that bridge gets.
Yeah.
I mean, I walk over it all the time, and I mean, I'm sure that it would be structurally sound, but I'm not excited about the idea of listening to that thing vibrate in the wind.
Do we have planters on each end of the bridge?
They're off the end of the bridge, but yes.
I'm trying to think where those are at.
They're on the block next to the bridge in front of the retail, down on the bridge itself.
that was
Right
one
when
of
you get
the,
off the bridge to the west,
Yeah.
there's one right there and over by Four Queens too.
Same to the east.
that was one of the things that I had mentioned to James as a side note after the meeting the other night, or a week ago, was a smaller version of our square planters in these locations seasonally that could be then taken out during the snow season, easily, a liner in them, but a smaller version, because those that we have are quite large, to be tucking in an area like this. But I know there's also value of having just open space where a wedding party can get their whole group in and you don't have any obstacle for a really nice photo, that kind of thing. So just throwing it out there. Something that's not permanent.
Right.
Well, or even like flower boxes, that you could hang right there in the summer. Or hook onto the railing or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see the need really for the pedestals,
Go ahead, sir.
Not against flowers and plants, but we have a ton.
Yes, we do.
And just, to comment on that, it's not so easy to have a flower box that we can just remove because we will need equipment on there and it's big
Right.
equipment. It's not just,
Right.
nice and easy.
Yep,
So
yep.
just a thought there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I was going to say, I don't think the DOT would be terribly enthused about having a dead weight on the overlooks that was not anchored down into the bridge abutment. I mean, they are
Quite possible.
really particular about
Yeah.
any kind of additional weight whatsoever that would go onto those overlooks.
So no loitering on the bridge.
Right.
Not if you're somebody my size, no.
Keep in mind, those two
I'll be right there
examples
with
I
you.
gave you were not, like, they'll do that, but they were wanting us to engineer it
Right.
and create it.
The two examples of what?
The wind feature.
Those the shade features.
Oh,
Just put a
yeah,
couple things
yeah,
and put them on
yeah,
there.
Yeah.
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 I suspect if we knew the actual cost of this garbage can coffee holder and everyone had to get their checkbooks out, we'd probably say no. So
Yeah.
I'll lean with the group and
Well,
say, let's keep it clean.
I told managers, if we had a good vision, like what we would do with it, I might support it, but as it is, it's kind of like, let's put something in there, but who knows what, and that really doesn't inspire me.
I wouldn't put it in there because you're gonna have to shovel around it.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
It's another canvas for,
yeah. I'd rather,
you know,
I think it just
police
blocks
department to
view,
have to
too.
deal with.
We have a lot of young people walk across that
Right.
bridge, and anything you put on there is just more reason to climb, throw.
Right, run into it, break their legs,
Climb
yeah.
on top of it, yeah.
Yep.
All right, let's go one more after that. And this is at the entryway to the bridge. These are entrance markers, basically, that could be set out, not actually on the bridge, but would be off of the DOT right-of-way. These particular ones, I kind of apologize for this picture because I couldn't find what I was looking for, and my sister-in-law lives in Chaska, Minnesota, and I knew Chaska, Minnesota's bridge over the Minnesota River had something like that. So I went on their website and downloaded this picture. That's why on the left you can see it says Chaska on the thing. But there have been some suggestions about something like that, maybe have a community message board or some kind of marker before you go onto the bridge.
I don't know that I like that. It might seem like it could fit on the west side of the bridge, but the east side where the buildings are right close to where the bridge starts, they would get swallowed up by the architecture right there, so.
It really feels like something that makes sense when you're entering a community. You know, if we were crossing the river into the city, and the opposite side wasn't the city, it would seem out of place to me.
Like the entry signs coming into town.
I think what we have out there already is enough, and it's beautiful. I think if we put more stuff in there, it might just look cluttered, so.
So without being able to take an official vote on this matter, Heather kind of set a precedence that I'd like to give city staff a very clear picture of where things stand. I'd kind of like to just go around the horn with a brief 1-minute comment on where you stand.
You mean with the
Yeah,
design?
yeah, what
So
you're kind of seeing.
I said I like the flow on the railings and the brick work on the sides and the ellipse. I'm not a fan of the plinth or any sort of other marker in here. These end markers, gosh, if we can get the Iowa Dairy Spot arch over again, I might be interested, but I don't think traffic would appreciate that, so.
Somebody's probably got it in their garage. I'll let you go again.
I think the same, mine was the very last part.
No Iowa Dairy Spot?
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with Brian, and I think, you know, depending on whether it costs us anything, if we want to eventually put lights there and we need to do something to have access when the bridge is built, I would be in favor of that if it doesn't cost us anything more.
Sure.
Yeah, I think I like the idea of having the lights for the dam that we can, you know,
Yeah,
even if it's something simple that we can change. to
I'm in
having
favor of the
red.
lights too, I forgot to mention that part.
Even if it's something like Christmas time, we have red and a green one, and, you know.
It used to be lit up long ago.
I think the consensus on all of the elements, I think, are fine. I think when you start, you know, the beauty is the river, so the more stuff that we add to this, the more we take away. And I think the cleaner, the simpler, the better. Lights that can go along with that, I'd want to understand the cost before we did that, but I think it's good.
Okay, Rod?
Yeah, well, I agree with everybody except I like the picket style. The railing, but I understand the comments about it, you know, kind of matching the style of the amphitheater and those kinds of things. So that's not a major issue. I do like the brick much better than simply concrete. And I think that the ellipse bump out certainly has something to be said for it. I'd be happy with the trapezoid 1, 2. I agree the prow maybe is a little, maybe too dangerous with somebody out there.
It's aggressive.
It is aggressive, yeah, but particularly if it will make snow removal any better, you know, if that makes sense to have the ellipse, I think that would be fine. But either ellipse or the trapezoid 1 are fine with me. So.
Okay. George?
Can we just have one that says Margaritaville?
Do we want to go back around the horn?
Maybe just a little
No, I like the first one. All the way to what's it? The lips one? And then the brick.
Yes. Thank you, sir. Anything further before we move on?
I'm done, thank you.
All right, no
Appreciate
problem.
everybody's time.
Absolutely. Moving to section G, reports from boards and commissions. Item number 1 is the Board of Adjustments minutes of June 13th, 2022. Item 2 is Human Equity and Diversity Commission minutes of July 12th, 2022. Item number 3 is the Waverly Public Library Fundraising Committee minutes of July 18th and July 25th of 2022. And item 5 is the Waverly Public Library Building and Grounds Committee minutes of July 2022, all received into record. Section H, staff updates. Mr. Bronner, anything further?
Are you good then? Good. We have no updates tonight.
All right. Move forward into city council comments from Mr. Birgen.
So I wanted to let people know that this weekend is the Rugged Toad Adventure Triathlon at Ingowanas, and I know that they're always looking for volunteers. I think you can still sign up if you're crazy enough to do it, but if you just want to watch other people kayaking and mountain biking through the woods, you have the opportunity to sign up and do that as well. So just kind of getting the word out on that. And anyone who'd like to come after the city council meeting and talk about city council business, you're welcome to share a beer with me at the Bremer Brewing Company. So they're still open on Mondays until the end of the month. So got to go there before they close.
You had me at kayaking in the woods.
Oh, kayaking in the river, mountain biking in the woods.
Oh,
sorry.
okay, gotcha. Perfect, thank you.
It's after the brewery, then you kayak in the woods.
Ms. Beaufort.
So school starts tomorrow, so, you know, I'm thinking about all the teachers that have been working so hard to get our kids back into school and appreciate everything that they do for our kids. Also, I really want to give my best of luck to the police officers that we're going to be manning that area for the new parking ordinance. So thank you ahead of time for all that you guys are going to have to do. That's it.
Thank you. Ms. Rathe.
The community garden is going strong. I think we're closing in on 4,000 pounds of produce, and we still have a bunch to harvest, so it's a good year so far.
Excellent.
That's it.
Thank you. Mr. Schneider.
Nothing this evening?
Mr. Drenkow.
I'm good.
George?
That's it.
Any parting words?
No.
All right. Thanks for joining us, though. Appreciate that. Mr. Kangas.
I was just going to kind of echo off Heather, and the police department kind of jumped me on with the newspaper, but again, with school starting, the kids are going to be excited. Drivers, please be alert, be aware of those school zones and watching for kids, as well as the younger drivers that are heading off to school. And trying to figure out where they can park too. So.
It'll all work out just fine. Yep, pedestrians, school bus, stop arms, all that kind of stuff. Be aware. Don't need a knock on your door later. Only two things I have. I received a letter indicating we are pleased to inform you that the above named property, the Wartburg College Historic District, which is located within our community if you didn't know, was listed in the National Register of Historic Places effective August 9th, 2022. So we had a little bit of effort into that. My other item is we just received notice of a vacancy on the Human Equity and Diversity Commission. So if you're interested in that, go ahead and go online and apply to serve. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Schneider, second by Kangas. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same sign. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.